The night air shimmered with the glare of 100 red brake lights. James Porter sat in the front seat of his black SUV, jaw tight, phone pressed against his ear. He was the founder and chief executive of CentraSafe, a company that built artificial intelligence software to prevent road accidents. Irony followed him like a shadow. He just didn't see it yet. "Find me that report before sunrise," he barked. "If another unit malfunctions, the board will skin us alive." Static crackled. The driver, Harold, gripped the wheel a little tighter. Outside, rain began to fall. Slow drops that soon turned to sheets of water. The traffic light flicked green. Harold eased forward. That's when a blur darted across the headlights. A child, pink jacket, backpack swinging. Harold slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. The SUV stopped inches from the girl. Her eyes met James's through the windshield, wide, terrified. For a long second, nobody moved. Then James shouted, "What's wrong with her? Who lets a kid cross like that?" Harold whispered, "Sir, you nearly—" "Just drive," James snapped, voice shaking more from adrenaline than anger. He never turned around to see if the girl was safe. He didn't even know that moment would echo for days. He designed cars to protect lives, yet one flash of anger nearly took one. Morning. Rain gone. Sky hard blue. The boardroom smelled of coffee and panic, screens lit with bad numbers. A CentraSafe test vehicle had crashed during an overnight demo. Brakes failed, no injuries, but investors wanted answers. James felt the world tightening around him. He jabbed the conference table. "No excuses. We fix it, we silence it, we move on." No one spoke. The youngest engineer finally said, "Sir, people are starting to ask if we rushed the update." James's glare silenced him faster than any board vote. The meeting adjourned. By dusk, the city outside blurred again behind tinted glass. James climbed into his SUV, loosened his tie, resumed barking orders through his headset. "Pull the PR drafts. Get legal on standby. No, I don't care what it costs." His words ricocheted through the cabin like bullets. Then, a touch. Small. Unexpectedly. A hand pressed gently against his mouth. He froze. The Bluetooth line went dead. Harold swerved, startled. "Sir, what the—" From the back seat came a soft voice. "Shh." James twisted around. A girl sat there. Maybe 7. Neat braids, eyes steady. The same pink jacket. He blinked hard. "How did you get in this car?" Harold's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Sir, I picked her up outside your building. She said her mom works for CentraSafe. Security waved her through." The girl leaned forward, calm. "You shouldn't yell. You scare people when you yell." Her tone wasn't rude. It was factual, as if she just stated the weather. James rubbed his forehead. "Harold, take us back, now." "Traffic's locked, sir." He sat back, pulse hammering. Outside, horns blared. Rain returned, light tapping against the glass. Inside, silence expanded like a living thing. He could silence a boardroom with fear, yet one small voice had silenced him. Minutes passed. The girl hummed to herself, a tune without words. Something in its simplicity slowed the rhythm of his breathing. Finally, James said, "What's your name?" "Amara." "Where's your mother?" "She's still at your office. She cleans the top floor." He exhaled through his nose. Of course, maintenance staff. He remembered snapping at a janitor that morning. Same weary face, tired hands. "You shouldn't have left without her knowing," he said. Amara looked up. "You shouldn't drive mad." The driver coughed to hide a laugh. James shot him a look but said nothing. He turned back toward the windshield. Traffic crawled. Raindrops glittered on the hood like tiny warning lights. His phone buzzed again. Press release drafts, investor threats. He hovered a thumb over answer. Amara's voice floated forward. "You don't have to pick up every noise." He didn't. He set the phone face down. For the first time all day, the hum of the engine was the only sound. The absence of noise felt strange, almost holy. "Do you always tell grown-ups what to do?" he asked. "Only when they forget how to breathe," she said. Her answer landed deeper than it should have. Because somewhere inside, he knew she was describing him perfectly. They rolled past a narrow street. A delivery van fishtailed in the rain, screeching toward their lane. Harold jerked the wheel. The SUV skidded, stopped just short of impact. James's heart hammered. Amara stayed perfectly still, seatbelt snug across her chest. She whispered, "See? You were breathing again." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She wasn't warning him. She was teaching him. Harold turned off the main road, cutting through a residential area to escape gridlock. Neon lights gave way to quiet streets lined with murals and shuttered shops. Rain eased the mist. James loosened his tie completely. "Amara," he said softly, "why did you say I scare people?" She traced a finger across the fogged window. "Because loud people are usually afraid." He blinked. "Afraid of what?" "Being small," she said simply. The words hit like a confession he hadn't made yet. He thought of the meeting, of shouting to keep control, of his reflection in every polished window. Expensive, hollow. They stopped at a red light beside a wall painted with bright sunflowers. Amara perked up. "That's my school!" "We painted that last year." He followed her gaze. In yellow letters above the flowers, "Grow kindness." For reasons he couldn't name, the message lodged in his throat. Halfway across the city, his phone vibrated again. Urgent alert. CentraSafe Update 2.4 causes another crash in Atlanta. 2 injured. The headline glowed like an accusation. He felt Amara watching him in the mirror. "Someone got hurt?" she asked. He nodded slowly. She said, "Maybe your machines need a nap too." He almost smiled. Then the truth hit. He'd been pushing the update that failed. He'd been the loudest voice saying, "Ship it now." For the first time, guilt felt heavier than rain. He built a company to save lives, but noise had made him dangerous. The SUV climbed a small hill overlooking the city. Lights shimmered below like scattered data points. James said quietly, "You know, Amara, grown-ups don't get to stop. People depend on us." She tilted her head. "Then they depend on you to slow down, too." Harold parked near the curb to rest the brakes. Silence filled the cabin again. Not empty this time, but full, like fresh air after a storm. James turned halfway in his seat. "How old are you?" "7. "You talk like you're 70, she grinned. "Maybe you just listen like you're 5. He laughed, a small, genuine sound that startled even him. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Streetlights pooled golden circles on wet pavement. Amara leaned her head against the window, eyelids drooping. Within minutes, she was asleep. James studied her reflection, tiny, peaceful, unbothered by all the noise that ruled his world. He whispered to no one, "How did I get so far from this?" Harold said quietly, "Maybe this is your detour, sir." They reached her neighborhood. Rows of modest brick houses and small yards glistening under streetlights. Amara stirred awake. "That's my house," she murmured, pointing toward a porch where a woman waited, waving. James exhaled, relief mingled with shame. As Harold parked, Amara gathered her backpack, a small keychain dangling from the zipper, a tiny yellow shoe, scuffed and bright. She turned back to him. "You should keep quiet more. It looks good on you." Then she smiled, slipped out of the car, and ran to her mother's arms. James watched the reunion from behind the glass. The woman looked familiar, his building's cleaning staff. The same one he'd once snapped at for vacuuming too loudly during a meeting. Amara waved. He raised a hesitant hand. Wave returned. When they disappeared inside, he noticed something on the seat. The keychain. One small yellow shoe. He picked it up, holding it between finger and thumb. Still warm, still glowing faintly under the dashboard light. He turned it over once, then slipped it into his pocket. He thought the lesson ended at her doorstep. It hadn't even begun. The next morning, James woke before sunrise. For the first time in months, there were no unread messages waiting, no red alerts pulsing on his phone. He'd turned off notifications overnight, a small rebellion that felt like freedom. The yellow keychain sat on his nightstand, catching the pale morning light. He picked it up, turned it in his hand, and for a moment just watched the way it glowed. Ordinary plastic, yet somehow heavier than gold. He didn't fully understand why it mattered. Only that it did. The day began like every other. Security at the lobby, elevator hum, mirrored walls. But something inside him had changed. When the doors opened onto CentraSafe's top floor, he noticed things he'd never seen before. The exhausted intern asleep over a keyboard. The janitor wiping the same spot twice because employees never thanked her. The stale smell of burnt coffee that lingered from late nights. He walked past them quietly. In the boardroom, the crisis buzzed louder than ever. A PR manager was halfway through a sentence. "We've issued a statement blaming user error," when James raised a hand. "No," he said. "We own this mistake." The room froze. "You mean publicly?" one executive asked. "Yes, completely. Silence. The kind that ripples through an empire when its king changes tone." He looked around. "If we built technology to protect lives, then every flaw is our responsibility." "No spin, no cover," the PR manager blinked. "Sir, that could cost us millions." James nodded. "Then we'll lose millions. But maybe we'll earn something back that actually matters." The loudest man in the room had finally learned to speak softly, and the world leaned in to listen. Later that afternoon, he called an emergency staff meeting. Not for executives, but for everyone. Maintenance, security, cafeteria workers, janitorial teams. They filled the atrium in disbelief. The CEO rarely acknowledged them, much less addressed them directly. He stood on the mezzanine, no suit jacket, no tie. "I owe a few of you an apology," he began. "You've seen me at my worst. Angry, impatient, unfair," murmurs spread. He continued, voice steady. "Yesterday, someone reminded me that being loud doesn't make you strong. Listening does. So today, we started listening." He paused. "Effective immediately, every department head will meet with staff at every level, from interns to custodial, and review workplace conditions. You'll be paid for that time. Real voices, real stories, no fear." At the back of the crowd, a woman lowered her mop and stared. Amara's mother. Their eyes met. He gave a small nod. Her lips trembled before she smiled. It wasn't forgiveness yet. But it was something like grace. By evening, the story broke online. CentraSafe CEO admits fault in tech crash, promises industry reform. Half the internet called him brave. The other half called him stupid. He didn't read any of it. He was already driving somewhere else. The rain had returned, softer this time, almost familiar. He drove past downtown, past glass towers and billboards flashing his own company's ads, until the city turned to quiet streets, and quiet streets to a familiar neighborhood. He parked near a row of houses. Small, warm, alive. Amara's porch light glowed yellow. He hesitated before stepping out. His tailored shoes sank into puddles, cold water soaking through. He knocked once. The door opened to her mother, tired eyes widening at the sight of him. "Mr. Porter, I wanted to thank you," he said, "for raising a daughter wiser than most of my board." Before she could reply, a small voice called from inside, "Mom, who is it?" Then Amara appeared, clutching a teddy bear. When she saw him, her face lit up. "You found my shoe." He smiled and held out the yellow keychain. "Couldn't run the world without it," he said. She giggled, took it, then surprised him with a hug around the waist. He froze, then awkwardly returned the gesture. He'd built algorithms to measure human behavior, but no machine could calculate this kind of grace. They invited him in for tea. The home was small but warm, family photos on walls, scent of cinnamon in the air. Amara's mother worked quietly in the kitchen, while Amara showed him her drawings. Stick figures, rainbows, one labeled Mr. Quiet Man. He blinked. "That's me?" "Yup," she said proudly. "You look better when you're quiet." He laughed again, that same startled, honest laugh from the night before. For the first time in years, he felt like he belonged somewhere without earning it. Back at headquarters, CentraSafe's stock wobbled. Analysts called for his resignation. But something else began to grow. Unseen at first, then unstoppable. Public trust. His apology went viral, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. He posted a short video. "A child once told me, 'Loud people are usually afraid.' I was. Not anymore." It ended with the company's new slogan, "Drive safe, live quiet." Within a week, it had over 10 million views. Months passed. The scandal faded. The technology improved. Slower, safer, honest this time. James made a habit of visiting the janitorial team's break room every Friday. No cameras, no speeches. Just coffee, laughter, and stories. He learned names, birthdays, favorite foods. He even sponsored scholarships for their children under a new initiative called Project Yellow Shoe. The symbol caught on. Across social media, people began tagging photos of small yellow charms as reminders to slow down, listen, and breathe. One afternoon, he received a handwritten note at his desk. It was from Amara. Inside was a drawing, his SUV, her standing in front of it, and the words, "Thank you for stopping." He stared at it for a long time. Those 4 words held more redemption than any press release ever could. He framed the drawing and hung it beside his office door. Every visitor had to see it before leaving. The man who once chased silence for control had learned to find peace in noise. A year later, CentraSafe unveiled its safest product yet, an AI system that monitors driver stress through voice tone and recommends brakes. They named it Amara. During the launch event, he stood on stage under bright lights. In the front row sat Amara and her mother, invited as guests of honor. He said, "This system started with a conversation that changed my life. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths." The audience rose in applause. He looked down at the little girl, clapping with both hands, her yellow keychain glinting on her backpack. After the event, he slipped out to the hallway for air. Amara found him there, tugging his sleeve. "Do you still get scared sometimes?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, but now I know what to do." "What?" "Breathe," she grinned, satisfied. Then she pointed toward the cameras. "Go be loud about good things now." He laughed softly. "Deal." She skipped away. He watched her disappear into the crowd, realizing the world didn't feel heavy anymore, just wide open. That night, driving home, he took the long route. Rain began again, thin silver lines under streetlights. His wipers clicked a steady rhythm, and for once, he didn't reach for the phone. He rolled down the window instead, letting the cold air sting his face, washing away the static that used to rule him. At a red light, he glanced at the passenger seat, the drawing, the plaque, the quiet. And in the distance, a mural he hadn't noticed before. Yellow shoes, painted by children. Below them, a single line. "Sometimes the lesson comes wearing pink shoes." He smiled, full, unguarded. The light turned green. He didn't rush. He drove on, calm and human again, into the rhythm of rain and redemption. The man who once tried to control every outcome had finally mastered the only one that mattered, himself. If stories like this remind you that empathy can rebuild what power destroys, hit subscribe, because every week I'll share more real stories of redemption, justice, and quiet strength that might just change how you see the world.